actually can't tell me anything with my hair like this. Like, I feel like I'm that girl. Like, I don't know how to act right. Like, this is my first time getting knotless braids. I literally don't know how to act. I've been walking around just like, We're gonna talk about the viral TikTok books that are actually worth the hype. Like, I have a ton here. These are all super hyped up on TikTok. If you haven't read them, I'm sure you've heard of them. And if you're new to reading especially, I feel like it's so hard to figure out like what is worth the hype. Should I read it? Should I not? These are all the books that are actually worth the hype. So we're gonna get into it. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 books here. And really I'm talking about more than 17 because like there's some that I mentioned or I'm going to mention that I just don't have in the stack because I literally just didn't want to get them off the shelf. And yeah, look at me, just flip my hair again. Oh my God, guys, literally I cannot. You can't tell me anything right now, but let's get into the stack and I hope you guys enjoy. We're gonna start off with the Dreamland Billionaire series. I've heard people talk about this so much. These are definitely worth the hype. I think I read all 3 of these in like a week or something like that. I rated all of these 4 stars and I feel like that's so rare for me in a series to, bang. Can you not, like, y'all, every time I wanna film, he's always like making noise, like, look at me, I'm center of attention, like, let me hang out with my friends. Like, but this series is actually like so worth the hype. I love this series and it's a very thick book. It's 450 pages or so for each book. And I think the final offer is actually like the longest one, but they are so worth it. This is about 3 sons who their grandfather's like, hey, I have an inheritance for each of you, but you can only get your inheritance if you actually like follow these rules that I've like set for you. So each of them have to do something different. In this first book, the main character, he has to make the amusement park that his grandfather owns, like his family owns, like bring in more revenue. And so he's trying to figure out how to do that. And he asked his employees like ideas that they have. And this girl, Zara, who actually was like close with the grandfather before he passed, she was like, hey, I have this idea. I don't know if I want to share it, but she ends up getting drunk and she submits this proposal that is literally like just going in, absolutely going in on the entire amusement park in kind of the best way. Like, hey, these are the things you need to fix. And she doesn't submit it on purpose. And then he ends up loving her proposal. And then they start to have a thing for each other. And y'all, he's like the CEO, like billionaire, and starts to have feelings for her. So it is such a good series overall, but all of them have like different things that they have to do. You'll fall in love with all the brothers and the girls that or women that they fall in love with. The next book that I think that is worth the hype is The Art of Scandal. I'm gonna try to like breeze through these because there are so many. This one I don't think that everyone's gonna be obsessed with. I'm just gonna say that. I feel like this one is definitely a very wordy book, but when I think of books that make me feel like I'm watching a movie, I feel like this book definitely does that. I feel like this book popped off so much on Black TikTok and so many people were obsessed with it, and now it's in Barnes, which I love. Absolutely love when an author like gets their justice or due diligence or whatever the word is and they're in Barnes now. This book, again, I feel like it's not gonna be everyone's cup of tea, but the people who love it, they will love it. I rated this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Twisted Love, I rated 3.5 out of 5 stars. For me, it was definitely really good, but I feel like the spice was a little too spicy. But if you enjoy spicy books, this is going to be worth the hype for you. And I did enjoy it. It just was like, there were some scenes I was like, oh! Like, oh my God, it's spicy. I definitely want to continue the rest of the series. It's super easy to read. This one is kind of like a more broody, controlling type of guy. So if you are really into that, I feel like you'll like this. Also, I didn't really mention like the vibe of this book. It kind of gives off like Scandal. Like if you like the show Scandal, I think you'll really love this book. It's very similar in vibe. This book, I talk about this book so much. This is probably my favorite series of all time. And Kalila actually asked me in New York, she said, what's like one book that has like changed your life? And she's like, is it Love in Other Words? And I was like, no, I don't think that would be it. Like, I really think that it would be the Magnolia Park series, because this series is just like, the characters are so real, they're so raw, they're super flawed, but I feel like that is almost showing the beauty of the human experience. Like, we are all flawed people, and like, they still have great relationships with each other. They go through trauma and heartbreak. They go through beautiful things. It is such a great series. I love this, and it also is probably one of the most poetic and beautifully written like pieces of work that I have ever read in my entire life. Like the words feel like poetry. So really enjoyed this so much. This gives Gossip Girl vibes. All of the people in this book and series, they're all super, super rich. They all, like, people say they're toxic, but I really don't think that they're toxic. I just think that they're just people. Like, people are just people, and people be people, and people don't always make the right decisions, and that's just like humans in a nutshell. And I feel like this book perfectly encapsulates that. Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, y'all know I sobbed from this book, like literally sobbed. Like boo-hooing, just like I just was a mess reading this book, and every person I've recommended it to, they've also sobbed and just like felt some type of way after reading this book. It's about Yasmin and Josiah, and they are like actually divorced when the book starts, and they have went through so much hardship together, and there's a reason why they divorced, and it's really, really sad. Whenever you figure out what it is, it's literally why I was boo-hooing. But they are two people who just like keep coming back together like magnets, and so they start kind of being like, should we try this again? But we have kids and we're co-parenting, like this is scary. And I feel like you don't ever get that story, like ever, like people who've actually already divorced, like they're not thinking about getting divorced, like they're divorced. So I really enjoyed this representation because you don't see it very much in books, and it's also an incredible love story. Her writing is really good, and this is the type of book that I always recommend to people who love contemporary or literary fiction. I feel like it's a good bridge between that if you're trying to get into romance. If You'd Been With Me is a YA book, and it's I think the only YA that's going to be in this list, but it is a book that I literally cannot stop thinking about, and I think it's because it reminds me so much of like when I was in high school, trying to fit in, trying to like be perfect, trying to like make my friends like me, and not really being myself. And I think that there are very few books that represent that in this way, and they don't always have the perfect ending. It's very heartbreaking. I was crying in the airport while I was reading this, and apparently I like books where I cry, because a lot of these books I cried in, but this one in particular I think just was so like you can't go back, you know, you can't go back to high school, middle school, you can't go back to being a child again. Those memories you will never get back, and they will forever be what they are. And I think that that is kind of like sad and heartbreaking if you haven't always made the best decisions, but also it kind of like shows you what life can be like even if you haven't like always made the best decisions in life, and like as a younger like person. I'm realizing now that there are 18 books because I forgot one of my favorites, and I think it's because I only have the special edition copy because one of my friends is actually borrowing the other copy of this. This is literally a book I'll read every single year. It is a comfort read for me. I read it this year, rated 5 stars, read it last year, rated 5 stars, and I'll probably read it every single year. My friend Taylor recently read this, and she was like obsessed with it. Literally started it at 7 o'clock at night, read it in one sitting, and finished it by 10 p.m., which is wild. Alex, Kalila, like all of my reader besties, they also have all loved this, even though they love spice or they love literary fiction. They love different things that I maybe wouldn't necessarily connect with all the time. Everyone loves this book. This is a book that I recommend to new readers. I just think that it like stands the test of time and is such a beautiful romance. It will remind you of the feelings of when you first fell in love, and like just learning about yourself. Because it's a friends to lovers story, it's also a second chance romance. They have this beautiful like connection as friends and lovers when they're young, and then something pulls them apart, and then whenever they get older, you're kind of trying to figure out like what happened, like why are they not like connected anymore. This is so worth the hype, and I just love that book. And I also got the special edition copy, so you can tell like it's my only special edition copy that I own in my whole house, so you can tell I really like it. Archer's Voice is another book that I definitely think is worth the hype. I think that it's, y'all look at me, just swinging my hair, like I just can't, someone needs to come get me. But Archer's Voice I think is a book that is definitely worth the hype and was on Book Talk and like everyone was obsessed with. It took me a second to get into because the writing, I feel like I love a lot of dialogue, and this one has not as much as I would normally like, but the story has a cinnamon roll boy. It's about Archer, and he lives in this town where people like literally just don't like him. Like they don't like him. He doesn't speak. He doesn't talk to anyone. He keeps to himself. And this girl comes to the town because she's running away from something. And she's like, why does no one like him? They're like, oh, stay away from him. Like he's like just bad news. Stay away from him. So she gets curious. She ends up connecting with him, and they build a bond that is just so beautiful. But he starts to kind of come out of his shell and like wants to come into the community more, but people are like shunning him. it is just, it's so good. I love it, and I definitely think it's worth the hype. And you guys know that I am like super hard on my ratings, and I rated this one 4.5 out of 5 stars. Binding 13 is a book that I recently read this month, and you'll get it in my wrap up for next month. And I loved it, like loved it, loved it, loved it. Cannot get over Joey and Shannon, or Johnny and Shannon, and I also can't get over Joey and just like all the characters. There's so many characters in this, and it kind of reminds me in a sense of Magnolia Parks with there being so many characters, because you are connected to all of them and they all get their own books, which I can't wait to hop into. This book is long and the words are very small, but I feel like because it's so long, it's like 600 pages and it's a taller book and the words are small, but because it's so long, you really fall in love with all of the characters. Shannon is going through something in her life and it kind of makes her small and makes her like not really trust people, and Johnny is just like thinking towards the future. He's like, I don't have time for girls or anything. And then they end up meeting and their lives collide and like they're just meant to be. Like, it's so good. Honey and Spice by Bolu Babalola is another book that I loved. I feel like if you like the show Dear White People, this is a book that you will be obsessed with. The ending of this, I still can't get over Malachi. Like, Malachi is such an incredible book boyfriend, and the ending when he like, I can't even say it because I don't want to spoil it. The ending's so good. So this is about a girl who she has like a radio show, and she's like telling all the girls like, stay away from this guy Malachi. Like, he's a player. He's gonna just try to get with you and like leave you, and she gives girls like tips and advice. Then she ends up meeting Malachi and actually starts to have feelings for him. So the whole school, like, it's set in a college, and the whole school is like, excuse me, or were you trying to tell him to stay away from us because you want to keep him for yourself? So then there causes some drama, like, but also like it talks about race because the school, I think it's like a predominantly white school, and like it is so good. I love this, and I read it like 2 years ago and I still think about it. Like, it's so good. Daisy Jones and the Six is another book that I definitely think is worth the hype. I didn't think I would like this because I don't normally like books set in the 70s or 60s or whatever, but this one I think I like so much because it is pretty much all dialogue, and there's a show now, which I still need to watch, but I really like this. I think that Daisy is a character who's so strong, but she also just like follows her own like journey of like what she wants to do in life, and it's about her wanting to start this band and like just all of the things that go with that. I can't really spoil too much, but she meets a guy, Billy, and Billy and her, they have this band, and it's just, it's good. It's good. And again, I don't normally read books like this, and also the cover I feel like wasn't giving, and I loved it. I really loved it. Only for the Week by Natasha Bishop. This is a book that I always recommend to new readers because it's less than 300 pages. It's super fast paced. This is about a girl who, literally, I don't even remember the girl's name. All I remember is Rome. But Janelle. No, Janelle's a sister. She is going to Tulum because her sister's getting married to her ex-boyfriend. Yeah, wild. She ends up meeting this guy, Rome, who is friends with the groom who's like about to get married. And she's like, I'm not trying to start drama because like, obviously I dated my sister's soon-to-be husband. I don't want to start dating like the friend and like start stuff, but then she does have feelings. So she's like, what should I do? Rome is literally book boyfriend vibes. Like, he is everything. Absolutely everything. The yacht scene. Oh my God, guys, this is so good. It is spicy, so keep that in mind. And you guys know I'm not super obsessed with spice, but I love spice when it feels, one, intentional, feels passionate, and feels like, I don't know, just it feels like real. And this one I really enjoyed. Yours Truly and Part of Your World. One of my friends is borrowing Part of Your World, so I couldn't share that one, but this book, along with Part of Your World by Abby Jimenez, were books that I literally ate up. In 24 hours, I read both of them. I rated this one 4.5 out of 5 stars, and I rated Part of Your World 4.5 out of 5 stars. Now, these books are not super deep. They're not super deep. You're not gonna get anything like just wildly like life-changing out of them, but what you will get is a fast, fluffy romance that'll have like a little bit of a side plot. The main character in this has anxiety, so there's a really good anxiety representation in this book. Again, I didn't really read anything of Abby Jimenez for a while because I was just like, ugh, like so many people talk about her books, like, are they gonna be overhyped? They're not, like, they're actually worth the hype. But again, you have to go into them knowing that it's not gonna be something wildly deep. It's kind of gonna be a nice palate cleanser from like a super sad book or something like that. Like, if you're needing something that's gonna be like a little bit fluffy and happy-ish, this is a good one for that. Ace of Spades is also a great book that I feel like was on Black TikTok and still is talked about to this day. And this author actually just came out with a new book, I think this month, which I cannot wait to read it. This is more of like a dystopian type book. I think, well, no, I take that back. It's not dystopian, but it's like, it's not a romance, and all these other ones I think have been romances. This is about two Black main characters who go to a predominantly white school, and they start getting these notes pretty much from someone at the school saying that they're gonna out them of all their secrets. So they're trying to figure out who this person is because they're like, this is literally like my life. Like, you're gonna mess up my future. Like, they're trying to go to Ivy Leagues. So they kind of band together even though they're not friends. Like, one person's pretty popular and the other one's kind of just like not. They band together to try to figure out who this person is, and like the whole time you're just guessing. You're just like, what is going on? The end was kind of like a little wild, but I still really loved it and I still think about it. And I feel like books that make me think about them later on and are very different than other books that I've read, I really enjoy, and I feel like they're not overhyped. So yeah, love that one. Beach Read by Emily Henry. Emily Henry will forever be an auto-buy author for me, forever and a day. I think that Emily Henry does a great job of interweaving like romance, but also like a good side plot. And this was my first book by this author and will be one that I'll be obsessed with forever. Gus is just the freaking blueprint. Like, he's a little grumpy, but he's like grumpy for a reason. And then once he opens up, like, you're just like, oh, it's about, two main characters who one of them goes to her father's like lake house and ends up staying there to try to write, but she's kind of having like she's really having a hard time writing. And so Gus, who's the next door neighbor, he's like, how are you having a hard time writing? You only write romance books. And she's like, romance books are hard. And he's like, yeah, right. Like, you should try writing what I write because I'm also a writer. So then they decide to switch genres, and he writes romance and she writes like, I think he's writing like literary fiction or something like that. And they go on dates with each other for research. And like, it is just, it's really cute. I really like this. It also has like deeper themes to it too. There is a lot in this book that I feel like you could dive into and so many quotable moments. And then the last book that I think is definitely worth the hype is 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. Tia Williams, I think you have to go into her books knowing that you're gonna get more of like a side plot of romance and more of like healing or character growth or something like that. I feel like this book focuses so much on the healing of the main character, healing from like what her family struggled with and trying to be different and raise her daughter differently, healing from the trauma she's been throughout her life. She meets this guy and they have like 7 unforgettable days, and then they kind of like go their separate ways, and you get past and present timeline, and in the future they're both writers, but they've been secretly writing about each other for years. And like, they end up going to this conference together, and while they're at the conference they're kind of like, hey, like, you know, what's up? It's been years. So then they kind of like rekindle what they had, and you kind of figure out like what happened to them. Like, why did they have these beautiful 7 days and then like they just didn't end up working out. So these are all the books that I definitely think are worth the hype. There are others that I do not think are worth the hype that are not on this list. And if you want to know what those are, you can go to my Goodreads, because I update my Goodreads. I try to, like, every week. And you can go there and look and see what's on there, because it's pretty telling. Like, I've read 170 books last year, and I've read like over 40 books this year. And a lot of them are from Book Talk, and a lot of them are popular books, and a lot of them are things that people are like, they're so good, you have to pick them up. And I read it, I'm like, huh? Like, this is what you're saying is a masterpiece? Like, no. So make sure that you guys read all these books. You will be obsessed, and make sure you also take into consideration like how I've explained each book, because example, if you don't like spice, maybe you won't like the ones that are kind of spicy. And if you don't like fluffier books, you like sad books more, lean more into those recs. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Long vlogs are coming. There's so many coming your way. You guys are just not gonna know what hit you. So get ready to sit back and relax and watch the long vlogs, because I feel like you guys have been enjoying those, which I wanna share more of. But I had to share this video because I did the reading viral TikTok books video. And I ended up reading Binding 13, was obsessed with it. So it made me want to share, like, what are other viral, like, TikTok, Book Talk books that I've read that are actually worth the hype. So hope you enjoyed this video. Comment below a, like, TikTok book or a book that was on Book Talk or BookTube, Bookstagram that's super popular that you read that is actually worth the hype and that I should read. I love getting your recs, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.